It means that when we are talking about nation building, the church should also be at the forefront of nation building. The church should be able to provide ideas to help to build the nation up. We're not going to live forever. Many people by the age of 70, they are dead. Okay? Now, when they look back on your life, what exactly did you use this life for? What did you use it for? How did you add to others? On the 18th of June, 2024, that is just last month, I published an article that I titled "The Story Behind a 24-Year-Old Picture" or 24-Year-Old Photo. In that article, I talked about myself and my three brothers, more or less the story of our family, about how all of our lives, we had grown up with the hope that we could travel to the United States of America. But the Lord granted that we are still here, and we're trying to make something out of our lives. So my brothers were visiting Ibadan, and that inspired the article that I wrote. And then I got this comment, or this comment from a brother, a friend. He sent this note to me. It's rather lengthy, but I want to share it with you because that note that he shared with me inspired some other greater thinking, and more or less even inspired this video. So this is what this brother said. The brother's name is Athiang Jonathan. He's a student of the Baptist Seminary at Ogbomosho. He's about in his final year now, and somehow he got to learn about me through my writing. And every time he's in Ibadan, he visits me, he visits our local church, and he sent that note to me. So this is what he wrote, and I want you to listen to it. He said, "Good day, sir. I hope you and the family are doing very well. I read your article yesterday, and the writing was very smooth and the storytelling even more captivating. Very interesting and useful was your short interjection of the World War II D-Day scene, and it's pointing to impact the judge's mindset and worldview. Coincidentally, okay, if you want to know about what I said about the judge, I would want to encourage you to find the article and read. I will attach it to this video so you can read it. Coincidentally, I had started a historical TV mini-series called The Band of Brothers. So I started to watch that. It is a good retelling of the war through the eyes of a company called Easy Company, the 101, and which is the 101 division of the U.S. Allied fighters. I've watched the series slowly. In fact, I have not seen it in almost 6 months, partly because of time and partly because of its impact on me emotionally. It often leaves me contemplating such profound themes as death, the brevity of life, friendship, comradeship, brotherhood, and sacrifice. The interesting thing, however, is that I had not realized the relationship between your brief story and the TV series. It excited me greatly to have discovered that reading a short blog post this morning, whose excerpt I shall post shortly, I must say your article has gone beyond what you intended, concretized this piece of history in my mind. However, there are some discrepancies, if it's anything as such, since it may be just a matter of judgment, with the blog post on the outcome of the war. That discrepancy made me to decide to share this with you while taking the chance to share my gratitude. You suppose in your article that the Allied forces, he quotes me, the Allied forces were too confident in their victory not to have realized the danger Hitler's forces will still pose, and hence lost a lot of men. The Deadpool really supporting your view. However, the history excerpt in the blog post I read seems to suggest that the Allied lost fewer men than they anticipated and had a good win. Here's a short statement, partly on the TV series and partly on D-Day. So this is what the excerpt he's talking about. This is what it says. This is one of the great scenes, I think, in television history. It has gone through enormous length to make sure it's pretty accurate. They've put the cast through the type of tactical training these men would have gone through. The sound design, the weapons are accurate. They fired World War II weapons to create an accurate soundscape, and it shows the importance of small units of well-trained, well-led men. each playing their part on D-Day. And it's sum total of all those small actions that meant that D-Day was a success, and the Allied suffered less casualties than they feared they would have lost when they hit the beaches. Now, when he sent this, I sent a reply to him by explaining that, well, the immediate reaction or the immediate summation from D-Day was that the Allied lost more men than they anticipated. But I think by looking back on D-Day and the implication on history, then we realize that they actually lost less men. And because of the outcome of the war, D-Day haven't led to the fall of Hitler. We consider that it was such a sacrifice that was worth making. Okay? So he linked the story that I wrote about my brothers and I staying back in Nigeria, fighting the wars, economic wars, and he linked it to a practical, real-life situation on D-Day. Okay, and then he said all of that. Now, I want you to watch a trailer of Band of Brothers so that you can appreciate exactly what this man is saying. I think this is going to be about between 2 to 3 minutes. Please enjoy it.
It's been 2 years since I seen home. 2 years.
At 0600 hours, we will begin training to go to war.
This is not Dog Company. This is Easy Company. The first and finest company in this regiment.
Each trooper will learn this operation by heart and know his mission to the detail.
We're invading Europe, my friend.
All you have to do is remember what you were taught. I guarantee you gravity will take care of the rest.
We are on the eve of the largest action in the history of warfare.
It's Normandy.
We all do our jobs. Everything will be fine.
Scared.
We're all scared.
What made you decide to join the paratroopers?
Fire! I wanted to fight with the best, sir.
Tonight, we're gonna have to cross the river.
Those crowds are gonna catch some hell.
We're gonna have to find another way into Germany.
Easy, you'll head up the mountain through the Obersalzberg. Take the Eagle's Nest.
Man, it's been a long war. It's been a tough war. You fought bravely, proudly for your country. We're a special group. We found in one another a bond that exists only in combat.
Now, in recent times, I have been studying Obafemi Awolowo. And in one of his writings, Awolowo made the point that he has a calling to be a politician. That's what he said. He said, I am called to be a politician. But that he understood that the path to his calling as a politician is that he could do journalism and then he could also practice law. Okay? When Awo qualified as a lawyer in 1946, he could have gone on to make a lot of money. But he left all of that and went into the murky waters of politics. And God blessed him. I blessed it. He eventually became premier of the Western region. And he went forward to shoot for the office of a Nigerian presidency, which he never attained, but he did benefit this country. It was from him that I understood that a person can have a calling to be a politician. And it's from him that I've come to understand that my calling really is to be a pastor, even though, of course, electrical engineering, blogging, and all of those things are a part to that end. All right. So now it was while I was reading him that I came to appreciate more and more this whole idea of what is our purpose for living. What is our purpose for living? Okay, I began to read Awolowo after my accident. I was grounded for some 3 months. and had very little to do. So I purchased his books and I've been studying Awolowo, purpose of living, God's calling in our lives, and God working in our lives through providences. Awolowo had this principle in life. He knew that as long as he was on the path of right, he would have God backing him. He was a Christian man. In fact, I think he was born again. But as long as he had he was doing the right thing, God will back him up and God will bless his endeavors. Regardless, if it turns out well, it is God's will. If it doesn't turn out well, then it's still God's will. So that was so I had come to appreciate Awolowo more and more. But besides that, I've also come to appreciate crisis that our world go through. One of the major themes, or well, not theme now, one of the major happenings in the life of Awolowo was Awolowo leading Nigeria through the Nigerian Civil War. And very few people appreciate the fact that he was a finance minister at that time, and Awolowo was able to prosecute the war without borrowing a dime from outside the country. He didn't borrow a dime. Okay, so that's to his credit. But crisis envelop our world, and in the process of crisis enveloping our world, it is human beings that go out to solve the problem and this crisis. Okay, in the 18th century, we had 18th, 19th century, in the beginning of the 19th century, we had the Napoleonic Wars. Okay, where this man called Napoleon had the very strong idea or strange idea that he could replete French values and French civilization all over Europe. And he tried as much as possible to conquer nations, and he succeeded until he tried his hand on Russia and it failed. He did conquer Russia, but on his way back, he lost so many men that the Russians now came after him and they teamed up with others to defeat him. Okay, but usually these things happen. You always have one crazy man somewhere who thinks that his ideas about nationhood and about civilization is the best, and everybody must fall in line. Okay, after Napoleon, another major individual like that was a man called Adolf Hitler. Okay, so Hitler also did the same thing, but he was German, but he also failed. Okay, the recent one that we're having in our world today is Vladimir Putin of Russia. Okay, Putin believes that his idea of nation building, okay, is better and than others. Okay, and he's trying as much as possible to ensure that his own system of government trounced that of the West. Okay, and of course, Putin might have an argument because Putin believes that the West is encroaching on his territory and Ukraine is part of his territory and the West should not. He might have an argument, but at the same time, we are in the free world and every country has a right to belong to whatever association they want to belong to. So if Ukraine wants to join NATO, by all means they should, but Putin does not agree with that. And that's why the war goes on. Now, when crisis comes forth in a society, when crisis is birthed in a society, many times, and it's not too many times, it's not that everybody wants to fight wars, okay? But many times, wars have to be fought, okay? And when wars are fought, they don't fight wars on television. They don't fight wars through movies, okay? Real men fight wars. Men, boys fight wars. I'm not talking about women, because when war comes, that's when you come to realize that there's a difference between a male and a female, okay? It is men that fight wars. And the men that will fight the wars are usually, this is how it begins. When a country declares war, this is what happens. All the soldiers, all the professional soldiers on the field are enlisted immediately, because that's their job. Okay, they are enlisted immediately. Okay, but when there are not enough men on the field, what the next thing they do is they go into the universities and they harvest all the young men. They bring all of them out and enlist all of them, okay, to war. Okay, and when that's not enough, in fact, before they get to the university, they make it open. They invite people to join the war effort. And then they eventually go to the universities and then they begin eventually all men will go and they will all go to fight the war. Okay. Now, in the process of fighting wars, whether you win or lose, men die. Okay, men die. One of the things that you may want to appreciate about my making of videos is that there is nothing anybody does in this world that doesn't cost money. Okay, everything that we do costs money. So the production of these videos and anything, in fact, the reason why other people may not be producing the videos like I am is because probably they don't have the resources to be able to do it. Now, if I'm going to be able to produce more videos, I need to earn more money. Okay, and that is where this whole idea of teaming up with people in real estate. Okay, so have one property that we are advertising directly with a company called the Lakim Investments. Lakim Investments are into providing short-let services for people. Okay, so their investment or their property is actually in Ikorodu, Lagos. So if you find yourself in Ikorodu and you need a place to stay, stay at Lakim Investments and Properties. If you're probably you're coming to Lagos and you can't afford probably the hotel bills, or you can't afford to rent shortlets. I hear that shortlets per night in some parts of Lagos Island is going for almost like 750,000. Then you may want to contact us at Lakim Investment Properties. Okay, I was at the property just in June. I was in property. At the property, I went to Lagos for a wedding, and the owners of the property gave me the wonderful privilege of staying at their property. I stayed there for free of charge because I am a friend to the owners. And when I saw it, it was so beautiful. But it made me to understand that it is a short-let property, and you can stay there. You can stay there for a day, for 2 days, for 3 days. You can also stay there for a week, for a month, even for a whole year. Okay, we will give you a very, very good discount. And if you get in touch with them and tell them that you got to learn about them through me, they will give you a reasonable discount. So for short-let services, you're in Lagos for a short business and you want somewhere to stay, for people who have business to do on the island, you can actually stay at Lakim Investment Property. There it's at BOS, yes, Benson's Estate at Ibeshe, Lagos. And you can, from there, you can actually take a ferry boat, a boat, cross the short Atlantic and get to where you're going to on the island, finish your business for the day and come back and get some rest. Okay, so Lakim Investment Properties is offering that. They are sponsors of my videos. They are also sponsors of my ministry. So do business with them and you will benefit from them. All right, so now the story of Band of Brothers is the story of Easy Company, a number of young men who came together. All right, they were in a particular company, a particular division, okay, and they were supposed to prosecute some certain assignments during the Second World War, okay, and it was their experience that was related in that series. In fact, each of those experiences were true encounters of true men, things that went on at the war. And it's interesting that some 60, 70, 100 years after the Second World War, the story, we're still making movies and then on the war. So that's to show to you that war is not small thing. In fact, many times men return from war, they can't describe what they have gone through. Okay, one of our brothers on Facebook was talking about when he came back, or when one of his brothers came back from war, he can't eat meat anymore. The reason is because he has seen so many limbs torn apart. He can't handle meat. He can't touch meat. He can't eat it anymore, and so on. So men fight wars, and I personally, in my own personal devotional prayers, every day I pray for the Nigerian army, and it's something I want to commend to you, because the Nigerian army are doing something that Nigeria cannot pay them for. They are literally laying down their lives for us to live. They are spilling their blood so that our own blood can flow. Okay, they are. All right. So crisis is how I call it is a serious matter. And when crisis about wars are fought, it is ordinary men that fight it. So when that judge was saying that, telling my mother, that if war comes down to Nigeria, who is going to fight? Your boys are going to fight. And my mother said, over her dead body. It's later on that I came to understand that indeed it is boys, men like us, that fight wars. Okay, but before wars are bad in nations, what usually happens is that a country will be in a political system, okay, and men, the same men, but this time probably men with some working ideologies, come forth and profile working ideas for a society. Okay, that's what they do. They will profile working ideas. They will say, okay, maybe we want to take capitalism or socialism, or as it is in our day today, a combination of capitalism and socialism, sometimes more socialism than capitalism, sometimes more capitalism than socialism. Okay, but you bring ideas to make the society work. Okay, you say, okay, rather than going for a monarchy where one man breathes down on everybody's neck, you go for a democracy where we can allow for people to vote and allow for the views of the majority to speak. Okay, unfortunately in Nigeria, while we have succeeded in moving from a military government to a democratic government, our democracy is still not as democratic as it should be. Why? Because votes are no longer, and I'm not counting. Nigerian votes are not counting, okay? And hopefully, this country will not plunge itself in another war because of votes that are not counting. But, and INEC has a duty to ensure that the votes of Nigerians are counted so that elections are seen as free and fair. They are seen as free because anything short of freedom, of election being free, and anything short of election being fair could plunge the country in at war. Okay, so that is what happens. All right, in the process of building a nation, political philosophies are profiled. We want to do a democracy, but we must do our democracy right. We must do the right kind of democracy so that we do not plunge ourselves in crisis. Okay, so why is all this discussion, why is it relevant? It's relevant because of what I've said earlier on, the issue of purpose. Why has God called all of us? Okay, I said Awolowo felt he was called to be a politician. He remained in his calling. He didn't dare to, although sometimes he does journalism. When he was at court and he was going to be sent to prison, he defended himself and his followers. He practiced law there, but he was called primarily to be a politician. For me, I feel I'm called to be a pastor. All right. And it's the primary duty of a pastor is twofold. Number one is to share the gospel with unbelievers and to help unbelievers to appreciate who Jesus Christ is, to believe on the Lord Jesus Christ. And in the process, you're born again. You have a new spirit. You have a new motivation for life. You have a new grace of heart to do right. Okay, that's what I believe I'm called to do, to call unbelievers to saving faith, and then to call believers to living right. Call believers to living above board, not believers who call themselves believers by name, but are using the system of the world to carry out their believing. Okay, so that's what I believe I'm called to do. Two things: to call unbelievers to saving faith and to call believers to living righteously. But the truth of the matter is that the Christian church is not outside the world. The Christian church is inside the world. In fact, I believe that Jesus Christ saying that we should be the light of the world and the salt of the earth means that the presence of the church in society must benefit society. It means that when we are talking about nation building, the church should also be at the forefront of nation building. The church should be able to provide ideas to help to build the nation up. Okay, if we have election coming, the church should be able to lend its voice to the kind of leaders we must choose. If we have situations going on in the country, the church must be able to lend its voice to the situation on ground. The church must be able to interpret even history and tell the nation at where we are at the point of history. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now with Awolowo's books. I want to study Awo now, hopefully be able to lay my hands on the writing of Nnamdi Azikiwe and lay my hands on the stories, because he didn't write much, on the stories and life of Sardauna of Sokoto, and look at all these three men and be able to help Nigeria appreciate where she is in history, because that is what the church should do. Okay, now as the church, as the nation is trying to build itself up and trying to find its feet, the church should also be helping And many churches have been doing this, but we can do more. Okay, in the sense that where the nation is failing educational wise, the church can also provide educational institution to help teach our children. That is where I have benefited from. All my children, they're now in secondary school, but in their primary, kindergarten, primary, and secondary school, they have gone to mission school, church schools. In fact, many of the churches, I can't go to their Sunday services because I don't agree with many of the things they teach there. But as long as the church school, my children are safe there. So the church has been helping out. Even in university, tertiary institutions, many churches have been building universities, even though some of us think some of those universities are too expensive. And even if you're going to build university that will be that expensive, at least for church members should be able to afford to take their children there. There should be some healthy discounts for church members, but that's another subject entirely. But my point is this: the church should help in nation building. The church should help. And when the nation is plunged in crisis, the church should be able to lend a voice to suggesting ways out of those crises. All right, so that's what I'm called to do. And my prayer is this: that I will pastor a people that will grow up in society, and that one day they need an accountant general for the state. They will come to me and I'll say, take this person from he has managed church funds very well. He will manage your own funds well. Okay? Or they need this or they need that, then we can make recommendations. All right? But I'm not going to become I'm not going to work in government. Okay? Why? Because my highest calling, the highest calling for me is to pastor people, to help them to comprehend the gospel and to help them to live holy lives. But in the process of doing that, I must join in this whole business of nation building. All right? So as I say all of that, my question to you is this: what are you living for? What are you living for? Why am I asking that question? Because, as you might have also thought, many people do not have very healthy ends for what they are, what they are living for, what they are pursuing. Most people live from day to day. In fact, most people in Africa, they live survival. It's a survival mode. How to live from one day to the other. And all of these things still boils back to this whole subject of good governance. If you have a reasonable, good governance on ground, then you must have a situation where, you would have a situation where the economy of the society is better. And when the economy is better, people will be able to eat. People will be able to feed. At a situation where one Congo of Gari in Ibadan is going for 2,000 naira. I hear that a Congo of beans is going for 5,000 naira. Rice, I don't even know. Things are so expensive. The church must be at the forefront of providing solutions to this. How do they do that? Number one, we feed the hungry. We give them food to eat. Okay. And then number two, where we cannot feed them, we show them a way of how to fish so that they can eat. All right. And as we are doing that, we are lending our voice to the situation on ground and telling government, these are the things we must do. So the question remains, what are you living for? Okay. Are you living for just survival, or do you want to live in such a way that after your death, it can be said that this was what you did in contributing both to the nation and to humanity in general? That is what I have learned from the life of Awolowo. That is what I have learned from watching a series like Band of Brothers, even though I've not watched it, but I've seen part of the trailers. That's what I learned. That We're not going to live forever. Many people, by the age of 70, they are dead. Okay? Now, when they look back on your life, what exactly did you use this life for? What did you use it for? How did you add to others? How did you add to society? Okay? And so now, of course, I know that my calling is to be a pastor, to pastor people. And I'm not going to go to America. But there was a time I had opportunity to go to Canada to pastor. I had to shave it aside, because by the time I weighed it all, I realized that it was not fitting God's plan for my life. So I stayed in Nigeria, okay? And by the mercies of God, that's what I'm called to do, to pastor people. But as I pastor them, I must also be able to help their lives get better, okay? And as I do that, I must be able to add to nation building. I must be able to provide solution to help solve the Nigerian incessant problems. So if we have political problems, I must be able to lend a voice to it and say, why don't we do it this way? Why don't we do it this way? Why don't we do it that way? For me personally, I have no regrets about going to America or not going to America or going to America. Okay, I've stayed in this country. I've traveled out of this country twice now, and it's very likely I might even have more opportunity to travel in the future. Okay, and all the time I've been abroad, I realized that the people living abroad are just like Nigerians. They have blood flowing through them. In fact, one of the things I discovered abroad is that the standard of living or the cost of living in Nigeria is a lot lower than the cost of living abroad. So if we carry this our Nigerian mentality abroad, you will suffer. Okay, so I have no regrets at all. In fact, one day I was discussing with a friend of mine, and both of us traced our life, especially after we've left university, and both of us could get at about the same time where we got to understand that God was calling one of us to go to America, and God was calling me to remain in Nigeria. And if you are a human being, by the message of God, if you're a Christian, you know that you want to remain in the will of God and do the will of God. So I have no regrets at all. I'm not speaking for my brothers. It's very possible that my brothers still have plans of traveling abroad, but I'm very, very content living in Nigeria, And one of the things I hope to look forward to is that at the end of my life, I can look back and say, thank God I remained in Nigeria. Thank God, because in remaining in Nigeria, I was able to do this and that and that. I was able to add to people. I was able to make life better for people. Besides the fact that my own life even got better as a result of staying in Nigeria. So the title of my discussion, sorry, that is coming at the end of this thing. The title of my video is Band of Brothers, Reflection on Wars and Nation Building. That's the title. The whole idea of this video is simply this. What is our purpose in life? Discover it. Remain in it. Do it. But it is not possible for you to fulfill purpose in life without finding out who has created you. And that's where the gospel of Jesus comes in. In the gospel of Jesus, you get to know God. In knowing God, you have eternal life. Okay? And by having eternal life, you have eternal life present within you. You have the Spirit of God within you to direct you in life, to show you the things to do and the things not to do. A lot of this video has been just personal wrangling, I just uttering out what I think the Lord is saying in my mind. I hope you got something out of it. I hope it benefits you. My name is Deji Yesufu. I pastor Providence Reformed Baptist Church, Ibadan. If you want to get to know more about our local church, I invite you to send me an email at newdayGX@gmail.com. Please like our video, share it, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much for watching.